Yes, people, what we saying? Welcome back to another video presented by the MMA Minute. I'm JamieTheoMMA, and today I'm going to be breaking down this weekend's co-main event between Kamaru Usman and Khamzat Chimaev at UFC 294. What a co-main event we've got here. Obviously, the original co-main event was Khamzat Chimaev versus Paulo Costa, which is arguably a more exciting fight. It probably would have played out to be a more exciting fight. I see that fight being very similar to Khamzat's fight with Burns, to be honest. I think it would have been very similar, but I think Khamzat would have just dominated even more. But obviously that Burns fight was very close, so I think Khamzat would have dominated Costa a lot more than what he did in that fight. But Costa pulled out. I can't believe that he thought that he would even be able to fight with his elbow like that. I mean, should we just go and take a look at how disgusting that elbow was? I just can't believe that he thought he was going to be able to fight like that. It's disgraceful, the state of that elbow. It's just, oh man, look at that. That is, it's actually horrible. I don't even want to look at it. Jesus. But yeah, Costa pulled out because of that elbow. The commission pulled him, said that he couldn't fight, which is obviously fair enough. There was a lot of back and forth on Twitter between fans on who they think Khamzat should fight, who should step in. And that's always one thing that makes me laugh is who's going to agree to step in on 10 days notice to fight Khamzat Chimaev. And the fact that people are kind of clowning fighters that said no. I know that there was a rumour that Marvin Vettori got offered the fight and said no. And I've seen a lot of people clowning him on Twitter. I don't think that's fair. How can you clown someone for saying no to stepping in on late notice, going through that late notice weight cut to fight one of the most dominant fighters in the sport? It's just beyond me. It's beyond me. And Kamaru Usman deserves massive, massive credit for saying yes to step in for this fight, because it's his first fight at middleweight as well. That's going under the radar, the fact that it's his first fight at middleweight. He's finally made the decision to move up in weight. It was kind of I feel like it was inevitable, but he was waiting for the point in time where Adesanya wasn't the champion, because him and Adesanya are very good friends. He didn't really want to move up and have to come to a point where he was the number one contender and Adesanya was champion, because then there's that whole, it's like the Merab Aljo thing all over again. They don't want to fight each other, but they're kind of holding the division back. So I feel like it's kind of just been a matter of time before this happens. And then obviously Adesanya lost the title, so it's made it even more of a situation for Usman to move up. I do think, again, you might have already watched my main event breakdown. I've broke down the main event in a separate video, so if you haven't watched that, or if that's out after this, go and watch that when it's out. I don't really take into consideration too much the fact that this is late notice, because like I said, Usman's moving up a weight. He is someone that does get really big out of camp, to be fair. So he is going to be cutting a bit of weight still. He is going to have to cut quite a bit of weight. But I think it's these grueling camps for Usman. He can't really do that anymore. He's 36 years old. He's gone through how many championship weight cuts and fight camps that, for me, this late notice kind of fight camp for him, this late notice, not massive weight cut, but preparing for 3 rounds, this could really do him well. Not preparing for 5 rounds, not going through an 8-week fight camp, not preparing for 5 rounds and putting that toll on your body all over again. This could be beneficial for him. And for me, I'm not really putting into consideration the fact that it's late notice again. I know that might sound stupid, and I know it might sound really naive, but I think it could be better for him. I think it could be better, the fact that he's not going through that grueling camp. And it's always well reported that Usman's got problems with his knees and that his knees are really weak. And he's obviously said that himself on the Joe Rogan podcast however many years ago. So for me, it's probably a good thing that he's not going through this massive camp and putting too much of a toll on his body. And I do like the fact that he is jumping in on late notice, and I think it could be a good position for him. It's kind of a win-win scenario for him. Not win-win, but there's not really a losing situation for Usman. Obviously, if he loses the fight, he's lost the fight, but no one's gonna really look at it as in like, oh wow, Usman lost the fight, what a bum. Like that's not the case, and that can't be the case because, like I said, he's stepping in on late notice. It's a win-win situation. If he wins, he's the number one contender to fight Sean Strickland. If he loses, well, who cares? He came in on late notice. He saved the co-main event, and it's against Khamzat Chimaev, so it's like he's not really expected to go in there and look dominant. So for me, I really like this position that Usman's in. For Khamzat, it's quite similar because he's actually moving up in weight class as well. His last fight was against Kevin Holland, which was, I can't remember how many days ago it was. It's gonna be something like 400 and something days since his last fight. By the time he does fight, his last fight was at catchweight, obviously because of the fact that the fact that he was supposed to be fighting Nate Diaz and that fell through. The whole situation unfolded. So that fight was at catchweight. The fight before that, welterweight. The fight before that, welterweight. So there's just the whole thing with Khamzat that, again, this has been inevitable that he's going to move up. It's been something that's been well overdue, and it should have happened like months and months ago. He shouldn't have fought. He should never have been booked to fight Diaz, obviously. He should have been booked to fight a middleweight at that time. At that time, it could have been Kevin Holland, a main event between them two at middleweight. That would have been fine, because Kevin Holland obviously has since then moved up to middleweight himself. So yeah, I don't think there's going to be a massive size differential in this fight. I do think Usman's probably going to come in as looking the bigger fighter. Obviously Khamzat's going to have the size advantage and he's going to be at 1 inch reach disadvantage, but he is going to be the longer fighter in this fight because he has got a 2 inch height advantage. I don't think Usman is 6 foot. I know this is really like, I'm going off track here, but there's pictures of him and Edwards together, Leon Edwards, who they've got at 6 foot as well. And Edwards is like at least 2 inches bigger than him. So either Edwards isn't 6 foot, he's 6'2", or Usman isn't 6 foot, he's 5'11" or 5'10". But yeah, I know that's a really like off track kind of thing to say, but yeah, I do think Usman is going to be the bigger fighter in this one. Is he going to try and take this to the ground? I really don't think so. I think he's going to fancy his chances standing with Khamzat, and I know that's something that he's kind of fell in love with recently. In the Edwards fight, in the rematch at UFC 286, he did try and revisit that wrestling. I know he did it in the first fight, but you see in the Colby fights and stuff, he's fell in love with his striking, and that's something that he's definitely improved on over the years. He has definitely improved in that. He did the same with Masvidal and Burns. He stood with them and wanted to show off his striking. Is he going to try and do that in this fight against Khamzat? I do think so. I think he's going to fancy his power advantage in this fight, because I do think he probably does have a power advantage. Khamzat's probably going to be the faster of the two. I do think Khamzat will be the faster striker, and the more technical striker. I think Usman will have the power advantage, and then he might try and mix in the takedowns, but then obviously there's the threat of Khamzat on the ground, because he's no bum when it comes to the ground. Do I see Khamzat trying to get the takedowns? No. I think he's going to try and strike with him as well. So I do think this is going to be two, not wrestlers, because Khamzat is, as much as he is a very, very dominant wrestler, he's a good striker as well, and he showed that in the Burns fight. It's not two wrestlers going against each other. It's kind of two really well-rounded fighters going against each other. Can it get sloppy? I think Usman has got the tendency to get sloppy in the striking. Khamzat obviously showed in the Burns fight that he has got a tendency to get caught. I think he's probably going to try and be a bit more reserved in this fight. I don't think he's going to go hell for leather like he did in that Burns fight. I do think it will be exciting. Like I said, I think the original co-main event would have been more exciting from a fight standpoint. I think it would have been a more exciting fight. However, I think this fight's more interesting in terms of, we're going to learn a lot about Khamzat in this fight. We're going to learn whether he can kind of really hold his own against the next step in an opponent. Because, like I said, Usman, former champion. He's still championship caliber. Can Khamzat beat someone of that ilk? I do think so. But Burns, you could say, is on that level, but I do think he is just below that level. I think if you're putting these on a tier list, you put in Usman in S tier and you put in Burns in A tier, which is obvious to say because Usman's former champion. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Khamzat deals with this next step. I do think he wins this fight. I don't think it's going to be comfortable, but I do think it's going to be we look at this and it's going to be like a unanimous decision, and it's going to be 2 rounds to 1 maybe. Because I do think this goes to a decision. I think the decision prop I think there's quite good value in that, plus 240. When you look at the fact that Khamzat's a minus 275 favourite, you do start having to look at these method of victories or prop bets, because there's just not, I don't think there's great value in that. Maybe as a parlay piece, yes. But if you're looking at a single play to put on this fight, you start having to look at the method of victories or the prop bets. Maybe over 1.5 at minus 170. I do like the look of that. I don't think Usman's going to get knocked out. I really don't. Maybe I'm completely looking past that and I'm just being really naive. But plus 240 for Khamzat by decision is what I really like the look of here. I do think he gets it done. I really do. And I think it sets up for Khamzat versus Sean Strickland in what could be one of the craziest fights we've ever had, because the build-up to that would just be mental. Imagine Sean Strickland and Khamzat Chimaev trash-talking each other. Wow, I don't even want to think about that because that's just bizarre. But yeah, I'm going to say that Khamzat picks up a decision in this fight. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe I'm naive to think that. But yeah, you look at the latest weights there, which is pretty interesting. Khamzat, like I said, fought at catchweight his last fight against Kevin Holland. This fight is going to be fought at both of their two's most comfortable weight, and I'm really glad that Usman's moved up to see how he looks at middleweight. This isn't going to be the best kind of situation to see that, because like I said, it's late notice and then it's against Khamzat. I'm interested to see how he looks, but looking past that, if he doesn't win this fight, I'm still interested to see how he looks at this weight, because this is his more comfortable weight. How could he look with a full camp? Who knows? But I'm going with Khamzat here. I'm going to say Khamzat decision. I think there's good value in that. I really do. But yeah, let me know your predictions down below for this fight and the main event. I want to hear what your predictions are. If you do want to look at the rest of Steve's plays for this card, go and look at the betting guide, which is linked in the description. It'll have plays for many fights on this card, I imagine. So if you want to see his plays and his best bets, go and look at that betting guide. And yeah, enjoy the fights, and I'll catch you in the next one.